Hello, I'm Chuck Wolf, Chief Executive for Charles J. Wolf Associates, LLC. As a motivational speaker and a leadership consultant and executive coach and trainer, I often work with very successful people in their companies. Since many can't afford a professional, I volunteer to host a radio talk show called The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel, on a nonprofit community radio station in Bridgeport, Connecticut, WPKN. My reason for doing the show is to share with as many people as possible this wonderful process for helping people manage their own emotions and their relationships with others. My goal is for everyone listening to learn to use the Emotion Roadmap to make life better. As you listen to me, help others, I hope you are also learning. As a Simsbury resident, I'm delighted to be able to make the show available through Simsbury TV. To learn more, go to my website, www.emotionroadmap.com. Thank you for listening and watching. And this is Chuck Wolf. You're listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. Pleasure to be back with you. I want to thank everybody that's tuning in, that's a regular listener. If you're new to the show's called, again, the Emotion Roadmap. And the tagline is take the wheel and control how you feel. So if you stop and you just ask yourself, right now, how are you feeling? Is it how you want to feel? Is the feelings you're having helpful to whatever it is you're about to do? And if they're not, is there some way to take the wheel and change how you're feeling to something more ideal? Regular listeners know the show's about you calling in and having a chance to talk with me. And I have some expertise in helping people to deal with challenges in their life, particularly the challenges where people are stuck because something emotional is happening. I often find smart people feel somewhat confused or uncertain, doubtful about how to proceed when emotions are in play. Good critical problem solvers, good critical thinkers, the people that are really good at addressing challenges in their life, when they get stuck, you wonder why they're stuck. You often can find that the answer is somehow tied to an emotion. They're angry, or they're upset, or they're disappointed, and they're wondering how to bring it up and talk with somebody else or a group or to present it to someone. Or they're struggling with someone in their lives that are important to them. It may be somebody you love in your family, or it might be somebody that you don't even like, but it's somebody you work with that you have to get along with. So the whole idea of the show is to help you to be smarter about how you deal with things. So I want to just acknowledge that this is my last time on in December. And so while I know that you've got issues that you may be facing this morning that are relevant to this week, that you're also thinking about holidays, many of you, because many people are celebrating Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah to all of those who may be Jewish and are listening and celebrating Hanukkah. A Merry Christmas to all those who are Christian and are about to celebrate the Christmas holiday in a few weeks. And Happy New Year to everyone. And as you begin to think about what you reflect on as you come to the end of a year, are there challenges that you're facing, and you're one of those people that are smart but are stuck right now? And if you are, the whole idea of my show is to help you by using what I call an emotion roadmap. And the emotion roadmap is this way of looking at emotions differently. I had a conversation with someone in the Vistage organization. Vistage is really interesting. You may want to look it up, especially if you're a small business or medium business owner or CEO. The idea of Vistage is that a lot of times people that are leaders in organizations don't have people they can talk to about the challenges they face. One of my good friends who's been a president and CEO of mid-sized and very large organizations, actually, he said, leaders can never really have a bad day. Because when a leader has a bad day and people hear that the leader's having a bad day, the kind of messaging that goes out across the organization is really detrimental to productivity. And so he believes that somehow you got to put aside anything that might want to cause you to have a bad day. And when you are leading, when you're there, when you're present with people that work for you, you got to somehow show up and be that confident, energized, inspiring person that people need you to be in order to feel committed and engaged in their organizational purpose and work. But how do you deal with your stuff? So this idea of Vistage is a group that really embraces groups of people who are CEOs, chief executive officers, or other kinds of leaders in organizations coming in together. Nobody's a competitor, so they feel like they can share what they need to share in these small groups that meet regularly. Now, I'm thinking of doing some work for them, and so I had a conversation with them today, and I was just talking to them about this, and this whole idea about, where do people go when they don't have access to someone that can really help them, that's an expert? Well, who's more expert than other people who are in similar straits? But also, what if you have a leader in front of the group, and this is the work I was thinking of doing, is someone who has the ability to help people deal with the challenges that are emotional that most people don't know how to deal with. How do you deal with those? And I decided 8 years ago. This is my anniversary. I'm just finishing now 7 years and beginning my 8th year as a host for this show. Go back and thank my colleague Lou Pomalis, who many years ago, when he was a graduate student at the program where I was teaching emotional intelligence in organizations, Lou was a student of mine, and I had met him for the first time then. And Lou said, "I love what you're teaching, Chuck. And could you do this on the radio show? Could you teach us about the emotion roadmap and have people call in and get some help from you?" I said, "Lou, that's a great idea. I actually had done something quite similar, but it was like 35 years before or so." And I said, how would that work? And Lou introduced me to the people at WPKN, and took a little while. And once I got here, I had to learn how to work and talk on the radio. And Lou was very helpful with that. But it's been 7 full years, folks. So thanks for supporting us. Thanks for supporting PKN. Thanks for supporting the show. And and it's nice to have an anniversary here. So anyway, I encourage you to think about, if you got something going on in your life that you'd like some help with. The reason for the show is that not everybody can afford to pay for somebody with the skill set I've developed over the years. And so I wanted to make it free and be able to give it away. And if you're a regular listener, you know that I talk a lot about, when people call in, how to help that individual caller help you if you're the caller with your situation. But while I'm doing that, my intention is everybody else that's listening gets to see how I do that, how I help you. And then if you listen long enough and you practice the things that you're hearing on this show, you're going to get better at this idea of taking the wheel and controlling how you feel. So that's the nature of the show. And again, you're listening to WPKN 89.5 FM. Listen to supported radio. You support us. Serving Fairfield, New Haven, and Litchfield counties, in Connecticut and Suffolk County in New York, as well as communities around the world. And you can listen to us on podcast. Last week's show, I talked about engagement. I'd like to talk about it again. Engagement is this really neat idea about how people get involved in organizations. What makes people get up in the morning and want to go to work? What causes you, if you're part of a volunteer organization like WPKN, to be one of that core team that wants to keep showing up and helping with anything that the organization might need from you? Whether it's here at the radio station, some other community group that you belong to, something in a church, or some other kind of religious affiliation that you might have, something else at work that you might be engaged in, where you feel like, boy, I can't wait to work with this team. What makes people feel like that? How do you create that? How do you create a culture that reinforces that? That's not simple. And it doesn't happen by itself. It takes work. It's kind of like a marriage or any kind of partnership. Those partnerships, marriages, relationships, they take work. They may just happen initially, but to sustain them, to maintain them, and to keep them at a high level, you got to work at it. You got to be willing to do the work. But willing to do the work is different than feeling like I want to do the work. I can't wait to do the work. I so enjoy being with this person, with this organization, with this team. So what creates that? So I want to welcome new listeners. I talk about different leadership topics. I talk about different relationship topics on this show. I always have topics that I want to bring up and discuss with people. But mostly what I really enjoy is if you've got something you'd like to call about that's challenging you. Maybe it's a conflict at home. Maybe it's something at work where, You're uncertain how to proceed with somebody who you work for because you got something you need to say to your boss and you're unclear about how to say it. Or you've got a peer or somebody that you work alongside that you're not getting along with, and you'd really like to figure it out for all kinds of reasons. And also, if you're a leader yourself and you've got issues in your workplace that you'd like to address, how do you build a culture of engagement? How do you build a culture of trust? I'm actually working with different groups right now on this idea of how do we create more engagement across our community, across our enterprise, across our own team, our interactions with other teams. How do we make more people feel engaged with one another in a collaborative, cohesive way? Fun stuff and challenging, but really enjoy it. Bye-bye. So I hope you got to listen to my colleague I Messiah's show. Wish him a Merry Christmas. And everybody else out there that's listening that got the holidays coming up. Happy holidays to everyone. If you've got something you'd like to call me about, give me a call at 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Sometimes I talk a lot and I don't leave a lot of time for the phone calls. So I'd like to allow more time for phone calls. So if you've been waiting to talk to me, and if you've got something that you're kind of curious about, you're not certain how to proceed, something in your life that's meaningful to you, and you'd like some help, then I'm here to share whatever expertise I have. And I hope in helping you that other people who are listening get to hear some ideas that might be helpful to them. One of the things that was really interesting, I discovered in psychology classes many, many years ago, was something that Harry Stack Sullivan, a very famous psychologist, called the delusion of uniqueness. I'm certain that there are many of you out there listening today that feel like you're the only one that's struggling with fill in the blank. With whatever it is that's going on for you, I can almost guarantee you, I can't guarantee you absolutely, but almost guarantee you that the thing that you're struggling with is something that lots of people struggle with, but no one talks about. Harry Stack Sullivan felt that part of what makes people mentally unhealthy is this idea that they're all alone out there feeling depressed, angry about things out of their control, challenged by little issues in life that are irritating that they can't seem to let go of. And yet somehow when you think you're alone in that, it complicates how you feel and heightens that negative feeling. If you know that there's lots of people, it's kind of like the old expression, misery loves company. Well, I don't think it's so much about misery loves company, but it's the idea that if I'm miserable and other people are also miserable about the same thing, I don't feel so strange, I don't feel so different, I don't feel so alone in this. Now, that doesn't make the feelings go away or change, but it does lessen the impact of those feelings in terms of your overall mental well-being. So, if you didn't know that, one of the things you just learned today is this idea of a delusion of uniqueness. Is there anything in your life where you feel like you're the only one feeling such and such? Anyway, if you have something on your mind that you'd like some help with, I'm going to stop talking for a moment and just allow a couple of moments for people to call in. I'm going to say the number a few times. So if you got something, don't wait till the end of the hour when I'm out of time. Let's see if you got something that we can deal with right now. And then again, the fact that I'm able to help you by using this emotion roadmap will allow others to learn something about it and hopefully allow them to be helped as well. The number to call is 203-336-9756. Again, I'm Chuck Wolf, and you're listening to WPKN 89.5 FM. And here's my first caller. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Hi, Chuck. My name's Breanna.
Hi, Breanna. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. And thanks so much for the call. How can I help you today?
Well, let me see if I can figure a place to start.
Okay.
So a year ago, a lot of things happened within this last year, a lot of wonderful things. I found the love of my life. We got married. We got a house. We had a baby.
Wow, that's a lot.
All in a year.
Wow.
Yeah. And everything is wonderful. My husband, his mother has recently been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And this is something that she's been battling on and off for a while. His job is not working out what he had originally planned. The job that I'm working, I'm not really too happy with. It's something that I got from my family. So, it's kind of like I feel almost like obligated to keep it. But it doesn't really make me very happy. Since I had the baby, everything's been great. It was about 3 months ago. I've recently just started suffering from postpartum depression. I find a lot of my friends that have had babies don't like to talk about it. I know I'm not the only one that's going through that. But now everything's kind of starting to slowly fall apart. We have, our house, and we have a beautiful baby, and we love each other very much, but he's talking about quitting his job, basically starting everything over, moving up with our family to be closer to his mother, which I totally, want to do. But I'm having a hard time emotionally being there for him because I'm kind of struggling with things myself. And I guess my question is just, do you have any advice as far as, just little things I can, remind myself every day to stay positive?
Sure. So I guess the as I'm listening to you, Breanna, I'm always thinking about, so what's the key feeling here that is impacting you in a way that you want to, the key thing you want to change? And it sounds like, well, there's a lot of different pieces. The overall feeling is feeling overwhelmed, it seems.
Yeah. Yes.
And so what you want to feel, I think, in terms of this idea of a roadmap is to feel in control again.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
That you hit the nail on the head.
Okay. All right. So then the question becomes, how do you take back control over the things that are happening? Because there's a lot of things that are kind of feel like they're spinning out of control, and you can't really get your arms around them. You're very aware of the positives in your life, so it's not like it's just like reminding you to count your blessings, because you're already doing that.
Yeah.
You have a lot of challenges that you're facing that feel like you're not alone in this idea of postpartum depression, and the things that you can do about that. My guess is you're already doing some of those things, so that you're trying to manage that. So part of this is hormonal, but it isn't just hormonal. There's 2 jobs that you both have that you're not necessarily happy with. You feel somewhat committed because it came through your family, and you feel some obligation. You don't want to let them down. And your husband is trying to think about not only just leaving the job he has, but he's also feeling the pressure of wanting to be closer to his mom, who just found out she's got terminal cancer. And all that is, there's nothing you can do to change those realities necessarily. So the question then becomes, how do you, it's like, how do you build your resilience?
Right.
To deal with all this stuff?
Yeah, because it seems like it's coming from all angles. And really, at the core of it, everything's okay. Like, we are going to be okay. I know that. But it's just like, how do I, get through the day-to-day and stay in the moment without my mind kind of spiraling, to all these other places? How do I stay focused?
So one of the ways of thinking about how to stay focused is by not thinking about everything at once. I mean, this is a strategy that I'm going to just suggest to you. But before I tell you about how that works, it's always useful to ask somebody who's living with all this stuff, instead of me just assuming that I know what you should do, what are you thinking about? Is there anything in your mind that is helpful with any of the kind of pieces you're dealing with that you're already planning? Or are you? I know you're asking for some help from me, and I'm happy to provide it. But I also, before I start in with what I think might be helpful is I'd like to know, you've obviously thought this through. What are you trying to do for yourself right now? And is any of it working?
I mean, I'm just trying to maintain a positive mindset because I know very well when you go to the dark side, it's so much harder to come back. So my thing is just, what can I do for myself? It's hard because my schedule every day is different. I'm in a different place in the state every single day. So, I think for me, just kind of like finding the time to kind of breathe is what I've been trying to focus on.
So you're kind of aware of the dark side and, trying to keep yourself away from that.
I've struggled with it for a very long time. I made some, I was young. I made a lot of not great decisions, and it brought me down a really dark road, and I pulled myself out by myself. I had family and loved ones, but, the time in my life I was in a different state, and I didn't have any outside help. So I know what I can do for myself is, I'm strong and resilient, and I can get through anything. So, but, that being said, it doesn't always, just come to light when I need it the most,
Well, but it's a great place to kind of start, Breanna, because, knowing what you know about having experienced some really negative situations in the past that were partly your own, creation, if you will, but you were also, your own creation was able to pull yourself out of that, it sounds like?
Yeah.
So is there anything that you have learned about yourself from those past experiences that may lend themselves to what you're experiencing now? Realizing you're in a whole different place, you got a lot of different players. It isn't just you now. You got a baby and a husband, so it isn't the same. But you also have some similar feelings that are familiar, and you dealt with those kind of feelings in the past. And I'm wondering, is there anything that you might bring forward from any of those other successful experiences you had?
I mean, just, making a decision and sticking with it and not questioning myself is really, I think, the key.
Okay, that's really important.
Obviously, there's so many different decisions that you can make, but at the end of the day, you can what if yourself all day,
right?
But it's just going to drive you insane,
right?
So I think for me is just kind of believing in myself and believing in the decision that I make.
So you have more than just you now. You have your husband in the mix, and he's somebody that, obviously there's a lot of stuff that's happened between you and him in a year's time that has made the bond pretty strong, it sounds like. Is he someone that you could include in that? In other words, you doing the what ifs by yourself, then you got to sell it to your husband. But what if the two of you, with you kind of talking through where you are, what you're feeling, and knowing that you got to put a list together of all these things that are impacting you and talk about them one at a time. Figure out what's most important to talk about first and making some decisions so you can kind of let go of that one.
Yeah.
So you're not so caught up every day wondering what to do about all these different things.
Well, and I think with him is, he's a very understanding man. And, it's funny because I'm always the one that's all up in the air, and I could do this and I could do that and whatever. But, now he's the one that's kind of doing it, which is throwing me for a loop, is like, well, how about we do this or how about we do that? And that's when my wheels start spinning out of control, is because, my internal instinct right now is to nest. I just want to stay put. And, we're kind of forced in a situation where we can't really do that, and he's kind of up in the air. And I think maybe I'm kind of looking at him hoping he can make a decision and stick with it. But he's kind of all over the place, so it's not really helping me,
How about, have you had this exact conversation with him yet?
Yeah. I mean, we're very open, and we talk about everything, but I haven't been, maybe putting my foot down, which is not really the term I wouldn't want to use because, obviously it's a decision that we both need to make, but it's just, it seems like we're very in the gray right now. Like, he doesn't even know.
Sure. Well, because it's one of the things I think you'll find, Breanna, is that once you make a decision, you'll still wonder if it's the right decision. But
right.
that's always the case when you're kind of torn about which direction to take, which path to take. And, even when you take a path, it doesn't mean necessarily as you're walking down it or even running down it that it feels like for sure it's the right one. That's why you're having the problem. But one of the things that I think you need to do, at least if now I'm going to try to be helpful in terms of offering something to you. One of the things that struck me was if I was in your situation, I think one of the things that would make me feel, remember I said you want to feel more in control?
Yeah.
So one of the things that would make me feel like more in control is let's be real clear about what we're talking about with each of these things. Let's not try and decide yet. Let's just talk through what each of these things means to both of us. Whether it's the dealing with his mother, can you do it from a distance? Do you have to be close? What does it really mean to be close? And just try and understand what it means to him and what it means to you right now. With you having a feeling of not wanting to move because you got a baby and you want to nest, and now everything's going to be uprooted, and it just feels like, we want to be close to your mother. This is how some of the feelings I'm having. I want to be close to her too. Is there some in between before we decide we're going to just pick up and move?
Right.
Because I need some stability in my life before maybe making a lot of these other changes.
Right.
And I know we don't have a long time with your mother, so maybe there's ways for us to get to see her a lot more without moving. And can we figure that out?
Really, I think realistically, because she lives an hour away, which is not, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I drive for a living.
Yeah.
So for me to drive all week, and then, drive all weekend to and from, it's just like, it's a lot. I don't really ever feel like I can fully relax. And the things that need to get done at the house aren't getting done because we're not home.
Does it mean that
I'm okay with us not living there, like moving, but it's just, all right, I'm kind of like, let's make a decision and go for it,
Got it, yeah. Got it. But I also would suggest that, maybe you don't have to be the one driving there. Maybe you don't have to go each time he goes.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like I want to spend time with her, too.
I get it.
And with the baby.
Yep.
We have a dog and a baby, and the dog is still a puppy. So she's like, it's a lot to deal with on your own. So I want to make sure that I'm there to help with whatever I can,
Okay. All right. So then it sounds like the move isn't, as much as you might feel like you want to nest, the move sounds like it makes some sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So then that would be supportive of what he wants to do, right?
Right.
Can you decide that now?
Yeah, I mean, I think what my issue is that, like, I have a tendency to, like, go back and forth, like we were talking about, like, is this the right decision? Is this not the right decision? I just want to, like, maintain, like, a positive outlook on everything.
Well, let's assume that it is the right decision. Now what?
All right. How do we get there?
But that's a different question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because just listening to you, I don't think you can make a different decision.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, because I suggested maybe there's different ways that you might manage it, and you said, no, absolutely, I want to be there.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty clear to you.
Right.
And if it's pretty clear to you, it's pretty clear to him, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah. Well, exactly. I think at the end of the day, I think we wanted the house to work, and it's just, there's just, unforeseen things that happen in life that you just gotta.
Hey, the way you deal with that one is I made a good decision based on the information we had. The information changed, and now we need to make a different decision. That's okay.
Right. Right.
I wouldn't second guess myself on that.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that's really holding you back from saying this is a done deal? I'm going to talk to him tonight, and we're going to decide that yes, we're going. We don't know how yet. We have, that decision is going to have to be worked on. But yep, let's make the decision. Not feel bad about what we did, because what we did made sense when we did it. It doesn't make sense anymore. We both agree on that. We both agree we want to be closer. How do we do it?
Right.
Does that feel better to you?
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is, this is kind of a model for the rest of it. Is like, let's talk through each thing and see if we can agree to move it forward a little bit. And then once we move it forward, what's the most important thing to work on next to make sure that we actually do it?
Right.
And I think what you'll feel, Breanna, is more control coming back into your life.
Okay. Yeah, because I think that's one of my pet peeves, is not having control.
And the other thing that maybe if you can find a little bit of time, you talked about having breathing space. I don't know if it's helpful to you is to just sit down and just focus on your breathing, not necessarily go into a meditative state, but just really catching your breath. I mean, there's a reason that expression exists, because people need some time out just to relax. And sometimes if you focus on your breathing and you kind of let your thoughts go, it feels invigorating and refreshing. And, simple things around meditation might be useful.
Yeah, it stinks because when I was pregnant, all I wanted to do was yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And I hurt my wrist pretty bad. I guess it's just something from like a repetitive movement, driving and whatnot. It just was constantly being irritated. So I couldn't even do like downward facing dog.
Right.
And it was really upsetting. And, ever since I had the baby, it just hasn't gotten much better. And I think a lack of exercise is also kind of what's frustrating me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really have the easiest birth experience. It took a lot out of me physically. So I think that might also be a contributing factor as to, the postpartum depression aspect of it. And,
right.
Well,
one of the things that helps with that, I mean, again, my guess is you're doing some reading about it, is, I don't know, sometimes
it's funny. I just was like, I thought initially like I was going to have it. I've never been clinically diagnosed with depression or anything like that, and I know a lot of people say I'm depressed. And, I talked to the doctors about it, and they kind of looked at me funny because I had never gotten diagnosed with depression or anything. And, the first 3 months, I cried here and there, but, it really hasn't been since I started going back to work that it really hit me.
So that's not necessarily just hormonal. That's also the fact that you're no longer just being with a baby. I mean, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily just postpartum depression that comes from hormonal changes. It's also the reality of, hey, I need to work and I'm not home anymore. And that's sad.
Yeah, and I think the fact that I really don't like my job doesn't really help either.
Yeah, right. Right. Well,
I'm very isolated from people, so it's a matter. I think it's a matter of like finding something for me, like an outlet, so to speak.
So one of the things that helps to compensate for that is, one is to make sure that the time you spend is as valuable and as high quality as you can make it, with the time that you have at home with your family, with your child, with your husband. That's one way. Another is to do things that, sometimes I encourage people to make a list of the things that they like doing, that are fun for them, that they enjoy. It could be listening to WPKN. It could be going to the movies.
Always.
It could be watching a certain television show and just watching 3 hours of it. Even if it's something you've seen before, just because it makes you feel good. It could be reading a particular author or a favorite book, or just somebody else in a series of somebody that you've liked to read in the past. There's a lot of maybe if you live in the city, maybe it's going to visit a museum. If you live in the suburbs or country, maybe it's a walk in the woods. But if you just make a list of things that you love to do, and then put a date beside when was the last time you did them, and then note whether they cost you money or you do it alone or with friends, and then take a look at the list and say, look, while I'm feeling this way, I'm going to consciously plan to do a couple of things on this list every week.
Right.
so that I'm actually doing something to be more resilient by building up my immune system, if you will, my emotional immune system,
Yeah.
by doing things that make me feel good to cope with some of the feelings that aren't so good.
Yeah.
So that might help with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other thing is to have a little. I mean, you laughed a couple of times in this conversation, and the more humor you can bring to your life, I think, the better it is to deal with all these things.
Right. Exactly.
So let me leave you with this. If you're struggling with the dark side, I'd suggest that you go to see the new Star Wars movie. Or something that makes you feel like laughing and just
Right.
a little playful. Does that help?
That's very helpful. Thank you so much, Chuck.
Okay, Breanna. Thanks a lot for the call. I appreciate it. And good luck with everything. The nice thing about talking with you is the first thing you said is things are going to be okay. You continue to hold that thought, and you start to do some of the things we just talked about, which, kind of includes going through with your husband. Okay, if we're moving, let's start talking about how we move, but let's decide we're moving. That's number one, and not feel bad about it, because when we made the decision to do this, it was a good decision, and now things have changed, and so now we need to make a different decision. Life happens, and we're moving on.
Right.
And then the more you can do that with some of the other things you talked about, I think you'll find all the better. And then, the sadness around your mother-in-law's illness is, the interesting thing about cancer and things that have terminal dates associated with them is that we're all on that same path. We all end up in, at the end of life. At some point, we all die, and knowing that you're going to die sooner makes each moment that you spend together that much more precious, and it makes the quality of life, or at least the chance for the focus on quality of life, more important and better, because we have that focus that makes us not want to waste time and not do and not get upset about things that really don't matter that much.
And what's more joyful than a baby?
A baby and a puppy.
Has,
Yeah. And I mean, and congratulations on finding all those really wonderful things in your life this year.
Thank you, Chuck.
Okay, take care, Breanna.
All right, happy holidays.
You too. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So I hope everybody got the idea of how this works, right? The idea is that you want to focus in part on the emotions in play. So in this case, overwhelmed was the big piece, and then you kind of try to understand how come the overwhelmed feeling is there, and then you break it apart and you try and figure out how do we change that to feeling like you have more controls. So thanks a lot, Breanna, for the call, and good luck. So again, anybody else, you got something on your mind that you'd like to talk about? We still have about 20-some minutes right now. So if you got something that you would like to talk about, don't wait. I'm going to give you the number a couple more times again. 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. And I'll wait a moment. 203-336-9756. Okay, while I'm waiting, just a couple things to tell you about that's up and coming. That hopefully in January, I'm going to have this chance to start doing some conversations. I'm having lots of interesting ideas about who to talk to about this idea of engagement. It seems to me engagement is at the heart of what makes a lot of life work or not work. If you think about how engaged you feel in your workplace, which is often where we ask about it, if you're on the lower end, meaning that, you know what, you really don't like where you work, which is what we were just talking with Breanna and her husband both are feeling that way, it's kind of hard to get up every morning and just get back at it. And then at the end of the day, not feel exhausted because you're doing something you really don't enjoy and you're trying to do it the best you can. So it kind of makes you feel like, boy, I don't. It's hard to make yourself want the organization that you work for to be successful. And it may not be about them, it may just not be a good fit for you. But the truth is, what I find is that a lot of organizations really don't know how to engage people very well. They disrespect people. Sometimes not it's not purposeful. They don't do it intentionally, but they just don't think about how the other person is likely to feel based on what they say to them. And if they were more thoughtful about how they wanted the person to feel and how they were likely to feel by how they were going to address an issue with them that they knew was a bit controversial, maybe even was going to generate some conflict. What if you had a plan for how you said something to somebody instead of just said it, knowing it was going to be upsetting to them? Wouldn't that make you better if you thought ahead of time about how you wanted somebody to feel? But it seems to me, in my experience, leaders aren't very good at this. They really struggle with this. They don't. They say they don't have time to deal with it, and sometimes that's true. I mean, there's a lot of leaders I know that are incredibly busy people. But I think it's more than they just don't have time. They don't really know how. So when you say I don't have time, you don't have to admit you don't know how. Somehow that feels safer and more comforting. So I've spent my career, if you will, trying to help people know how to say things to one another. And I'm not perfect at this. I make my share of mistakes. But I make less of them now because I'm much more thoughtful about what somebody's going to feel when I address them in something I know is likely to be controversial, at least, if not conflicting, with something that's important to them. So, if you have found something that's engaging to you at the workplace, I'd love to hear from you. We had a few conversations about that before last week. I had some interesting ones. Also, I find that people are struggling with engagement at work, and if you've got some thoughts about what's going on for you and you'd like some help to see if you can turn it around where you feel disengaged, unengaged from the workplace, we can talk about that as well. The number to call is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. And again, I encourage you to call if you've got something on your mind. You just heard Breanna talk for a time, and hopefully some very positive things happened in that conversation. Not just for her, but for all of you listening. Because you heard about some struggles that were happening that, not unusual. Not unusual for people to be unhappy in their jobs. Not unusual for someone to be dealing with someone who has a terminal illness. Not unusual to make a decision that made sense when you made it, but it doesn't make sense anymore. Those are all things you can feel bad about, but you got to deal with them, right? So emotionally, how do you deal with them? And continue to build your own resilience. Your emotional immune system. How do you do that? How do you do that? Also, again, if you've got some thoughts about the workplace and being engaged, it's worth sharing. But sometimes you're not engaged at home, too. You ever feel like you don't really want to go home? That's a sad place for people. And it happens a lot, where people just feel like the relationships with the people that I'm supposed to love, and sometimes and often I do love, I'm not loving right now. And I feel like I want to be at work more, or at the gym more, or doing something more, because I just don't like what's happening when I go home. You can be disengaged at home, too. So anything that you've got, folks, that's going on around engagement that you'd like to talk about, I'd love to hear from you. If you've got something going on at work where somebody that you work for is really doing a nice job engaging you, I'd love to hear about what works. And I know we got people out there that are listening that got workplaces that they enjoy. And I'm asking, what do you enjoy about it? What makes you enjoy work? What makes you feel engaged? Because I want to do more with this, because I really think it's a big part of it. Do you feel engaged in supporting our government? Do you feel engaged in politics or turned off? Do you feel engaged at work or turned off? Do you feel engaged at home or turned off? Do you feel engaged at your religious community or turned off? Well, are you somewhere in between? What would help you feel more engaged? So again, the number is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. And I'll give you a minute. Well, this is going to be my last time on until next month, so I've got about 10 minutes, and I've got time for one or maybe two phone calls if one goes quick. So I'll give you another moment, 203-336-9756. And if I don't hear from you, then I'll just finish up talking about what I have learned about what makes a place and life, in fact, engaging. But I'll wait to hear from you. Again, 203-336-9756. Okay, not hearing from anyone. It's too bad. Lost opportunity, folks. Anyway, one of the things that I think makes for an engaged workplace anyway is a vision that is appealing, compelling, inspiring. A vision of somehow an organization doing great work. Now, it doesn't have to be a hospital where you're saving lives. It can be a bricklayer that's making a beautiful cathedral. It can be someone that is cleaning up a toxic environment, who is, in waste management. Someone who is making bathrooms sparkle so people come in and feel clean and not violated when they have to use a restroom. Someone that takes care of children. Someone that, that basically is involved with housekeeping, that allows people to go out and do what they're great at, and come home to a home that sparkles when they walk in, knowing that the way they left it wasn't sparkling when they went out the door. I mean, there's a lot of different things that can be very engaging when you have the right vision for what it is you're doing and why you're doing it. Just as easily, you could turn many of those same statements that I just made into disengaging visions. Hospitals are all about pushing people out, just making enough money so that everybody gets paid. They're really not about taking care of people anymore. You could say that, right? Waste management is just about people picking up trash. It really, it's something horrible. Who would want to do it? I mean, you could say all kinds of things that have negative spin to it. So I think vision starts with what's your vision about what you do and why you do it. And can you influence the way you think about what you do so that your vision is a vision that is compelling, that does inspire you? I have a vision and mission, if you will, to make a meaningful, positive difference for people. I love the idea that when people call in, and Breanna was the only call today, if someone calls in and I can be helpful to them, at least feel like I'm being helpful to them, and know that when they are getting off the phone or when they have a conversation with me in person, that when I walk out the door, they've got an idea about how to make life better for themselves and for their organizations, for their communities, for their families, for their teams. I love that feeling. It's inspiring to me to live that when I can. Gives me a good feeling when I wake up in the morning, knowing I'm going to the radio show or knowing I'm going off to see a client and help them to build a culture that's engaging, or to help somebody to find that new exciting job that they've been hoping to get. Whatever it is, in a way that I can be helpful to people that makes a meaningful, positive difference in their lives is inspiring to me. So that's something I hope you can look for yourself, because that creates engagement. It starts inside you. Now, when you're working at a place where somebody's a bully, where somebody is disrespectful, where somebody just is constantly micromanaging you, it's very hard to shut that out and to continue to be engaged. I mean, you can try, and some people are better at it than others, but it's difficult. So is there some way to turn that around? Many, many years ago, I used to be a guidance counselor, and I remember counseling with, I started as a junior high school counselor. Well, actually, my first job was elementary school counselor in Massachusetts, in Brookline, Massachusetts. Then I went to Iowa, and I was the junior high school counselor. And then, actually, the state of Iowa's first elementary school counselor. That's a story for another day. But anyway, when I would counsel kids in junior high, I remember there were teachers that were, they were not nice in terms of the way they ran their classroom. They were very tough. I mean, sometimes tough teachers can be very, very effective. But that's when they're respectful and they hold people accountable, but they do it in a dignified way, as opposed to just making fun of kids or saying a question that the child asks is stupid. I mean, there are some teachers that I think, that I've met that were pretty poor. Most are really good, but there are some that aren't. And so when I was counseling a kid, I would, that was being picked on by a teacher, I'd say, well, how do we make you different so that the teacher doesn't feel like picking on you? We're not necessarily going to stop that teacher from picking on someone, but how do we stop it from being you? How do we do that so that you're not the target? So sometimes in a workplace where you don't have a choice about not to leave and you really can't influence the person you work for, but they are not nice people, the thing that you want to key in on if you have to stay and you can't really complain about this person is, how do you not be the target? Now, that may not be enough for some people. Some people may think it's just unjust and they want to fight the battle and that nobody should be a target of this person's, lack of ability as a manager or leader. Well, that's a different question, a different situation, and I would respect anybody's decision who felt like that. But you have to, pick battles you can win. Sometimes you're willing to sacrifice yourself because you can't win, but the battle's too important not to fight it, and you choose to anyway. I understand that too. But sometimes your focus isn't the workplace and what's happening to everybody else because you're the sole provider for your family and you have to provide a living and you really can't afford to lose this job right now. You can be looking on the outside, but at the moment, this is the job you have and you have to figure out how to survive it. And then maybe what you want to figure out is how not to be the victim, how not to be the target. You don't feel engaged when that's happening, but you feel less disengaged if you're not the target than if you are. So there's lots of different strategies for how to survive in difficult situations. My hope, and that's why I was mentioning this Vistage organization I was talking about, is if I can work with someone who's at the highest level in an organization, they call them C-suite jobs, chief something, chief executive officer, chief operating officer, chief financial officer, chief information technology officer, chief talent officer, whatever it is, chief human resource officer. Then your impact, if I can impact you at a high level in an organization, then the ripple effect of everybody who works for you and works for them all the way down throughout the organization is so much more powerful than if I help somebody who doesn't have anybody reporting to them. Simply because the influence that people have who lead at any level in an organization impacts the quality of life of the people working for them. So if you're one of the people out there that is a leader, team leader, supervisor, middle manager, senior executive, chief executive, whatever level you find yourself at, know that how you come in and how you deal with everyone every day has an impact that ripples throughout their lives. If you have workers that come in and feel reinforced by you, praised by you, supported by you, cared about by you, you know what? They go home and they share that day with the people in their home, in their community. If you come in abusive, disrespectful, treat people in a way that makes them feel diminished, causes low morale, disengagement, then that's what they take home into their families and into their communities. So we as leaders have great responsibility for engaging others in positive, constructive, meaningful ways. And for me, what I'm hoping is that I make a positive difference for each of you. And I hope that's the way you feel as you've been listening to this show. You've been listening to the Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. And I'm Chuck Wolf. And our show is on the first and second Wednesdays of each month from 12 to 1 p.m. on WPKN 89.5 FM in Bridgeport, serving Fairfield, New Haven, and Litchfield counties in Connecticut, Suffolk County in New York, communities around the world on WPKN.org. And you can listen to all my shows my recent shows anyway, on podcast on SoundCloud, Stitcher, or iTunes. And if you're interested, you can find me on PRX, publicradioexchange.org as well. So I wish you all a wonderful holiday season. Thanks so much for all of you that have tuned in and listened. I'm signing off and saying goodbye, and I will talk to you in the new year. I hope everybody has had a wonderful 2017, and I wish the best for all of you, all of my listeners, people that are in your connected networks of people. I hope everybody has a great 2018. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.